Hey everybody, Foley here. Welcome to the weekly news recap for the 21st to the 27th of April 2025. So, this week, the worst kept secret of the video game press for the last while anyway, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered was finally shadow dropped Tuesday, I think, 22nd. So available for basically everything except the Switch. This is a remaster of the 2003, 2004 game, something like 2005, something like that. I don't know. It's like 20 years or something since the original Oblivion was launched on 360, PS3, and then PC, obviously, around the same time. There's a bit of a stream event on Tuesday, kind of talking up, how far it's come along, yada yada yada. It's kind of only so good. Thinking about whether or not this is a remaster or a remake, there's been some debate over it. It's kind of just the visuals that have had an overhaul, whereas the underlying code, the underlying logic, is all still based off the original Oblivion. It's all still running off the creation engine in the background. It's just the visuals are now Unreal 5. I'm gonna skip ahead because it feels like they're deliberately making the old game look worse than it really was. Like it was not that blurry. Like the bloom was really bad, sure, but the visuals were not as bad as they're being shown here. Anyway, I'm gonna skip ahead, because a lot of this is just background to the original game. And then that's kind of newer footage there. It was a rather short blast of it. Anyway, so this wasn't made by Bethesda, it was done by Virtuous, which is a porting studio typically. I guess they were doing a port this time around as well. We had known that there was going to be, or at least there were plans for an Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster, as well as a Fallout 3 remaster at some stage in 2020. There was a leak from Bethesda. So the Fallout 3 one is still to come, I guess, assuming they're still working on it. Considering how well this has performed for Bethesda on Steam, how many units it has shipped and so on and so forth, it seems like a no-brainer that they would do Fallout 3. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of taken over Steam at this point and taken over a lot of other people, a lot of like console gameplay as well. Since Bethesda is a first-party studio, that means it's on Game Pass as well. So if you already have Game Pass, you can play the Oblivion remaster as well. Anyway, outside of the Oblivion stuff, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on as well, there were some other updates. So God Save Birmingham was a game that was shown off, I think, during the Game Awards, the end of last year. But God Save Birmingham is a kind of Kingdom Come Deliverance, but it's a zombie survival game. So they're still going for like the kind of realism that Kingdom Come Deliverance kind of goes for. The life of a medieval peasant. But this time there's also a zombie outbreak thing at the same time. So there's about almost 10 minutes here of footage of what the game will sort of play like. It is a bit laborious from what I'm seeing. It's like heavily animated stuff where like eating takes like 5 seconds or something for him to eat an apple. I mean, that's pretty fast in real life. If you were to eat an apple in 5 seconds, people would be pretty impressed. But in video game, that's taking a really long time. Anyway, it is going for, as I said, a more realistic kind of thing for medieval peasant type. But there's also a zombie apocalypse going on at the same time. This is your character has stolen their way into the manor of the feudal lord in the area. I guess they had a party at the time when the zombie outbreak took place. There's the lord there, looking about as well as he normally did. Anyway, there's a lot has been made about the kind of physics system that the game has. Let's skip to a bit here. It's like you can push this desk up against the door, and it does actually stop some of the zombies from getting in. There's later on, there's a bit where he picks up a chair. I skipped ahead a bit too far. He picks up a chair here to like make a, so that he can make that jump effectively. Anyway, makes that jump. Now he's having a run from the zombies. There's a exhaustion system as well. It kind of plays into it here. Lots of lads. I think he picks up a ladder here at some point. Yeah, so he grabs this ladder, makes himself a bridge. The zombies get on the bridge. Don't know why the ladder falls over for the zombie and not for him, but whatever. Like, I mean, that kind of worked out, I guess. And then for some reason, well, I guess I know the reason, because they wanted to show off the system, but okay, there is a ladder right there on the left that he could have used, but no, instead he decides to just fucking jump down onto the table, fucks up his leg. I don't know why he decided to do that, but anyway, I think they cut here. They move on to something else. This is somehow you manage to get home, everything's alright, go back to your base, do your cooking. You know, it's all very labored animations. I don't know how long people will put up with that for. I mean, I got sick of this kind of shit with Red Dead Redemption 2 because of how long it took to just do basic things. But I don't know, people might put up with it if they're going for more of a realistic vibe thing. Anyway, there's no release date or anything for this game. They're just kind of showing off what they're expecting the game will play like whenever it's ready, whenever it's done. And I think he gets swarmed by zombies at the end of the trailer. Anyway, it's currently just PC, wishlist if you're interested. Moving on. I never jumped to the mainstream, so apologies, I have now jumped. Anyway, moving on. Ghost of Yotai from Sony, first party game. This was like the only one that they fucking brought out. Concord doesn't count because they never actually brought it out. Alright, or they did, but then very quickly unbrought it out. Anyway, Ghost of Yotai is the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima. It's getting a release date. That's what this trailer is mostly about. 2nd of October of this year, so later on in the year might be clashing with Grand Theft Auto, potentially. Anyway, this trailer is quite sumptuous. It's a basic storyline. It's very Assassin's Creed almost with the storyline. 6 guys that you're, swearing revenge on, and you're mostly just crossing them off a list. Which reminds me a lot of, well, this Kill Bill obviously is a pretty basic one, but is it Assassin's Creed Origins or Assassin's Creed Odyssey that has something similar like this? Anyway, Ghost of Tsushima was good. No reason to believe Ghost of Yotai won't also be good, but yeah, 2nd of October for that. Another release date, Labyrinth of the Demon King that I talked about at a recent kind of horror showcase. It's got a bit of like a Kingsfield vibe to it, so it's first person melee, but it's like kind of lo-fi Japanese horror, kind of ancient Japan horror kind of stuff going on. Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. I don't know how long I'll put up with the film grain filter. If you can take that, if you can take that off, I might take it off. I don't know. It's a little annoying, but it is also part of the aesthetic, so maybe you should keep it. Anyway, I think it's somewhere in like the 2nd week of May, something like that. 13th of May for Labyrinth of the Demon King will be available on actually everything, including the Switch this time. And then RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business, which is like a DLC story standalone thing for the RoboCop game, is out in June at some point. I forget the exact date. I'm only going to highlight this one because the game is currently free on PlayStation. Well, free. You have to pay a subscription, but it's on PlayStation Plus. So, if you grab it now, you might be able to get the DLC cheaper than having to buy the full game and the DLC as well. It is not clear if this takes place after the events of the game, or if it takes place during the events, or is it set before the game, or something like that. I don't know. It does have a little bit of... reminds me a little bit of Fallout New Vegas with Mr. House and this kind of rogue AI thing going on. Not entirely sure if that's what's happening, but what it seems to be is that the OCP tower has been taken over by a bunch of people, and they're using the technology against them. And RoboCop has to go in and save the day and cut that guy's head off with a fan. I don't know how he did that, but that was impressive. All right, anyway, June at some point. I skipped too far ahead. Damn it. 17th. Oh, July even. 17th of July for that. Motor Slice again, also shown off. I don't think it was the Game Awards for this one. I think it was a recent enough showcase. Motor Slice is like as it says there, it's a parkour kind of thing. So it's a bit Prince of Persia 2008 specifically, reminds me a lot of that. And then it does have some kind of third-person kind of brawler style combat. You are carrying like a sort of chainsaw sword thing on your back. Combat doesn't look super interesting, but the parkour elements do. The thing that worries me a little bit is that the camera angle is very low, which means judging distance and judging depth is always kind of difficult when the camera is that low angled. That's why you'll find a lot of games tend to go for the high angle shot on these kind of things. But this may just be for the trailer, and the actual game itself isn't quite like that. But I guess we'll see. Anyway, this trailer is mostly just saying that it has found a publisher, so it's likely that you'll see it on more platforms. Potentially it'll make its way to console as well. I think at the time it was only going for PC, but with a publisher attached, it is more likely that it will make it to other platforms as well. But it's currently slated just for PC, but that will likely change. Anyway, last up, this is Quantic River. I think it was shown off at not Top Hat, Playism. I think had a showcase some stage during the week. I think it was shown off during that. So Quantic River right now is kind of like early development. They're planning on launching a Kickstarter pretty soon. But the idea for it is it's sort of Katana Zero. So it's like a side-scrolling slasher, but kind of like a high-risk thing where, enemies take one hit, but you also take one hit. But enemies probably take a little bit more than one hit. Looks like there's a health bar above his head there. Anyway, the idea is it's like kind of very fast-paced, kind of twitchy, like Ghost Runner, almost Katana Zero kind of thing going for it. I do like the art direction, the kind of keyframe animation stuff they're going for is really nice. It just looks really nice. I guess this is the way I'm gonna go with it. Very stylish. Again, this is a somewhat of a proof of concept trailer more than it is a actual gameplay thing. See how it actually works out for them. But yeah, planning for a Kickstarter at some stage soon. So if you want to check that one out, it's Quantic River. Then it's kind of looking around itch.io. I found this game called Pack. This was done in a Ludum Dare, which is a kind of not a hackathon, but it's like a 48-hour video game creation thing. And the idea of it is it's a bit like unpacking, and then it's a little bit like a little to the left and stuff like that. But it's basically about stacking things inside other things. We'll just do the first level. It's very short, like 15 minutes. Again, they made it in 2 days. It's not a very long game. But the idea is to pack your suitcase, but things go inside of other things. So putting in your laptop bag and your laptop at the same time isn't really gonna fly. But you open the laptop bag and put the laptop inside it, and we're good. Same with your toiletries case. You're not gonna be able to fit all your toiletries in, and unless you put them all in the bag with it. So I put the toothpaste in, your toothbrush in, your soap, put the soap in. Do I have anything else? No. Alright, so that goes in there. We could probably fit the mouse. Could probably fit the charger in. Alright, that's good. Close the bag again. We fit the toiletries bag in. Put our headphones down there. And then I don't know why you had to pack a pillow in a suitcase, but let's do it. There you go. Right. There's level 1. It's pretty straightforward, but it's a nice fun thing. It'll keep you busy for, again, at most maybe 20 minutes, some of the later levels, or 3 levels rather. Anyway, that's play by the name of the developer. Plasma Starfish, I guess. They don't have their actual name. Alright, anyway. I ain't gonna reload that because it's gonna be making noise otherwise for the rest of the day. Over on the Epic Game Store, Chuchel, it seems like we are going through the Machinarium game back catalog, because we had Botanicula last week. Machinarium wasn't there that long ago. And now we have Chuchel, and I imagine some more Summer Roast will probably make its way there eventually as well. This is kind of a comedy adventure thing, which is what a lot of like Botanicula was at the same time. Just like a bit of a silly animation game. Moving on, monthly games. Normally this is where we would talk about PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass and stuff like that, but we don't have an update this week. Sometimes it happens. But we are going to talk about something weird that is happening on the PlayStation Plus catalog right now, which is that some of Sony's first-party PlayStation exclusive games are leaving the catalog for some reason. Like, there shouldn't really be a reason for this. As is pointed out here on VGC, the list of available games does change every now and again. It's usually because licenses or contracts are expiring, but that shouldn't be the case for Sony's first-party stuff. Like, certainly shouldn't be a contract issue, because it's their own game. And licensing-wise, none of these use licensed music, so again, not really a reason for it. It is far rarer for PlayStation first-party games to be removed from the service at all. This is kind of doubly kind of a problem, because Resistance, Fall of Man, and Resistance 2, in particular, the 2 games that are leaving, as well as Infamous Second Son, but for those 2 games, they were PS3 games, PS3 exclusives. They don't have a PS4, PS5 port. They were never ported to PC or anything like that. So the only way to actually play them is part of the streaming catalog on PlayStation Plus. So there is now effectively no way to play either of those 2 games. So these are the other games that are leaving. GTA 5 comes and goes. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird like that. Trying to think of some of these other ones that kind of... Ghost Runner, I think, comes and goes as well. Like, there's some interesting games that are being taken off that, though. So, Arkham Knight, pretty big game. Enter the Gungeon is really fun. Roguelike, Journey to the Savage Planet, I've talked about, is really fun. Metroidvania, first-person Metroidvania. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is really good. Metroidvania. Ghost Runner is a very, very hard Mirror's Edge type thing. And so on and so forth. But yeah, there's basically no way to play these 2 games now once they leave PlayStation Plus. So it doesn't seem like Sony have any interest in making that change. Anyway, those are some of the games you could have played and are still able to play for now until they disappear. But what if you wanted to play something right now? Well, what has been doing the rounds on the reviews and is doing very, very well commercially is Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is finally out. I have been talking about this ever since it was announced, because it very much looked like a throwback to old school JRPGs. And from what I have heard on reviews and from what I've seen of people talking about it and so on, it very much is exactly what we thought it was, and that is a very much a good thing. Like, Square Enix don't make their JRPGs like this anymore. Like, these are real throwbacks to, like, the late SNES, early PS1 RPGs. The gist of Expedition 33 is there is this kind of supernatural painter who rouses from slumber every year and paints a number on her tower, and everybody that age or older dies immediately. And she started at, like, 80 something or something and has worked her way down, and by the time the events of the game, she's just painted the word 33 or the number 33. Sorry, it's not that everybody dies immediately. They die at the end of the year or something. Or is it? No, they die immediately. Is that something? Anyway, and various expeditions have tried to stop her from, like, constantly killing off effectively everybody. And this is the latest attempt to do so. But yeah, from what I've seen, this is very much an old school RPG in all of the good ways. Like they kept all of the good things and modernized all of the bad things by the looks of it. Anyway, also released this week, Post Trauma. I feel like I've been talking about this game releasing soon for quite a long time, but it is now actually out. This was shown off a very long time ago as a kind of Silent Hill, Resident Evil, spiritual successor kind of thing. From what I've seen, there's been like some mixed reviews. I think it's a bit shorter than people were expecting, and is maybe a little buggy, which is was kind of somewhat expecting because it was delayed so often. I was expecting it was going to be maybe a little bit rough, but there have been some people talking about it saying that yeah, it was like very fun. They really enjoyed it. Lots of interesting designs, interesting ideas, and stuff like that. So it sounds like it's a 70 or 80 out of 100 kind of game, but that's not really a problem for me. We have played janky shit on this channel, and I still like janky stuff almost as much as sometimes more than the very polished games. Anyway, as Post Trauma had the unfortunate, it's kind of funny that it was delayed so many times and now had the unfortunate luck of releasing on the same day that Oblivion was shadow dropped. We'll have more to talk about that in a second. 100 Line, Last Defense Academy. This is the next thing from the Danganronpa developers. So the idea with 100 Line is it is a kind of Groundhog Day tactics game. So you have yourself and this kind of high school, and the high school is also a defense academy or something. Don't worry, just go with it. So think it's a little bit Fire Emblem, I suppose, in that way. And the idea is it's got a little bit of the Danganronpa stuff where it's like very grim, very like miserable world state that you find yourself in. People are succumbing to, despair and so on and that kind of thing. But it also has the sort of interaction with your different classmates and trying to get them all on board. And I believe the game has like multiple endings, multiple routes. You're meant to play it multiple times. Danganronpa was somewhat similar. And sort of try to figure out how to get like the best ending, I guess. But I think it has like 100 different endings. The 100 thing, like the 100 line thing, Last Defense Academy, the 100 number comes up a lot. It's like 100 different endings, 100 different branching paths, and stuff like that. But yeah, from what I've heard, very well written, even if it is like super anime tropes, but still very well done. Again, if you weren't into Danganronpa, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to be into this one either. But if you are, there's a pretty good chance you will be into this one. All right, anyway, moving on. Necrophosis. I've been somewhat keeping my eye on it because it looked a little bit like Scorn. And the more I've seen of it, it's very much Scorn in that case. It does have this super horrible landscape that is also very well done. It's like very trippy visuals, very concerning visuals on top of it. It does have the Scorn kind of, you feel like everything is horribly sticky if you touch it, but yeah, it is kind of a first person puzzle type thing. It does have some very light shooter stuff to it. Again, it's like Scorn, same deal. Like you could almost like, I don't want to say it's just Scorn, but with a different visual palette, but it kind of feels like that's what they're going for. But yeah, it's very, very gross, very horrible. But that seems to be the thing they want to go for. Anyway, that's Necrophosis. It says wishlist now on the trailer, but it is actually out. Steel Seed is another one that I've been trying to I've been keeping my eye on for a while. It looks like they've fixed the faces as well. The faces looked very plasticky the last couple of trailers and the last demo, so maybe they've made them actually look like human beings. Anyway, Steel Seed is a kind of, how to explain it? So it is an action-adventure thing that is focusing a little bit more on stealth, despite what this trailer will show you. It is actually focused a bit more on stealth than all-out action stuff. I mean, the trailer is going to show a lot of combat and that kind of thing, but no, it is mostly a stealth game. Visuals are a little bit, like, they're very nice, but at the same time, it's not varied too much. It is like almost a factory setting for the whole game. But it does kind of vary up the gameplay, and yes, there's a lot of combat you're seeing here, but as I said, it is mostly a stealth game. Anyway, mixed reviews, it is a bit of a middle of the road, does some things well, does other things not so well, and again, as I said, with the visuals, you are kind of in this weird sort of factory setting for a very long time before the environment kind of changes up a little bit. Anyway, Steel Seed, and then we had, of course, Oblivion. So the Oblivion remaster, I didn't put it up front and center because it is technically a remaster of a game that's almost, if not 20 years old at this point. So I figured it probably shouldn't have had pride of place. Anyway, I seem to be the only person who thought that, though, because fucking everybody is playing the game right now. Shadow dropped on Tuesday. It was assumed last week, as I said, that it was gonna be probably shadow dropped at some stage this week, or at the very least they would announce a release date. And they went ahead and dropped the game out, and it is available on Game Pass. So if you're already subscribed to Game Pass, that's a free game for you. Should keep you busy for about a week. So, something like that. Anyway, good shit. I mean, Oblivion was a good game when it came out. Some of the changes that they've made are for the better. The UI, it's a bit boring now, but I see why they changed it, but I feel like it's a bit whatever at this point. It's a bit too clean. It's kind of is what I'm getting at. I think the old UI, as janky as it was, at least it kind of fit in with the game. Anyway, it is fun to see people like going back to some of the quests that they remember and, you know, doing them again, and like the game kind of, I suppose, looks the way that your nostalgia rose-colored glasses tells you that that's the way it looked. Instead of going back and going, oh god, that's what it really looked like. Anyway, yeah. I'm gonna wait a while, probably, because one, I have a shit ton of games to play, and then also, it's like $60 or something for the remaster, which I think is a bit much. Since you can get... I mean, it's not like you can get... well, you can't get Sexy Spriggan ass with mods. I was gonna say you couldn't get it with mods. You definitely can. If there's one thing you can get with the mods, it's definitely that. Anyway, Oblivion 4 Remastered dropped this week. Some other ports. The Forza Horizon 5 port has made its way over to PlayStation, so allegedly the best racing game is now available on the most popular console at this point. So the Forza Horizon series, the Horizon series is the Burnout style one, the big open map. You kind of just drive wherever you want and do things, do activities and so on. Forza Motorsport is the more bespoke arcade racing thing where you race around specific racetracks and stuff like that. They're both good for racing games. I mean, I don't like racing games in general, but even I will, you know, say that, yeah, the Forza games are good racing games. Anyway, if you were lamenting that it was on Xbox and you didn't have a PC that could play it, and you can play it on PlayStation now. Anyway, and the last thing, we're going way back. We're going way back even before Oblivion. Breath of Fire 4 has been added to the preservation program for Good Old Games, so that has also launched in a way. Breath of Fire 4 wasn't quite the last Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire 5, I think, was the last one, but it didn't do particularly great for commercially for Capcom, or critically for that matter. Breath of Fire 4, on the other hand, was very, very good. And for all of the JRPGs that are sort of coming back and getting like modern remakes and remasters, or just entirely new entries and so on, can Capcom kind of, could you see your way to making a Breath of Fire maybe? That would be nice. 3 is still my favorite one. But you can find ROMs of that pretty easily, whereas Breath of Fire 4 would have been a pretty tricky one to get your hands on at this point. Breath of Fire 5, I feel like, will be really hard to get your hands on. It's a PS2 game. I suppose you can... I don't know if there would be too many ISOs for it. Anyway, it's not that good. Breath of Fire 4, though. That's a good game. Anyway, unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games. The video game industry. So, somewhat kind of more tongue-in-cheek than industry bullshit. A game released on the same day as Oblivion Remastered is getting a joke spiritual re-release. So as I mentioned, Post Trauma dropped same day as Oblivion 4 was shadow dropped. if you are not kind of familiar with how the publishing calendar works, they tend to sort of space it out so that they're not releasing their games at the same time as a giant game like Oblivion comes out. So Oblivion being shadow dropped is kind of fucked over a lot of indie devs. Might have overshadowed Clair Obscur and so on. Now, as it turns out, it doesn't seem like it has overshadowed Clair Obscur. That's still getting a lot of good press, and it does seem like a lot of people are buying it as well, so that's good. But it might have overshadowed Post Trauma. And a kind of joke, but also not a joke kind of way, they put out a social media post to say that due to unforeseen circumstances, we're going to re-release Post Trauma in about 8.5 weeks, which is a completely random number that we just made up, but that is also roughly like when Oblivion won't be talked about anymore kind of thing. So there'll be giveaway streams and celebrations on the spiritual re-release day, so make sure you're there once you finish playing Oblivion, obviously. And there's a longer video that's very funny, but I think the hashtag kind of points out why they're a little bit frustrated. No shadow drop this time. This kind of happened. There was another big game that shadow dropped last year, or maybe 2 years ago, something like that, that similarly had indies kind of pissed off about it in some ways. I mean, they can't really do anything about it. It's a giant publisher like Microsoft. They're not going to listen to anybody. Was it I think it was EA, and they shadow dropped like the entire Command and Conquer series like onto PC. It was like all 6 of them or something, and it just fucking annihilated anyone else who was bringing out a tactics game at the same time. I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember now. But anyway, there's a reason why they do these kind of things. I think the developers behind Promise Mascot Agency were saying the same thing, that they were trying to avoid being caught up in the Switch 2 news, so they delayed it, and then they ended up launching at the same time as Oblivion, Blueprint, Clair Obscur, and a bunch of other things. It's like, people have probably forgotten about our game now, shit. But again, there's the other issue that you've seen a lot of games that have been getting June and July release dates, and a lot of that is trying to get out before Grand Theft Auto, because they don't know when it's coming out. Like, there is a certain thing about announcing your game too early, but there is a thing about announcing and releasing it too late as well, because you can kind of screw over the rest of the industry. And these are, yeah, your competition, but they're also like in some ways, your colleagues. It's, just be a good player. Anyway, don't shadow drop your game. Don't shadow drop a giant game. Anyway, I think indies can probably get away with a shadow drop, but like a big publisher like Microsoft shouldn't be shadow dropping their game. Anyway, moving on. Privacy firm files Ubisoft legal complaint over data collection forced online in single-player games. So this is coming from Noib, or None of Your Business, which is a consumer privacy and consumer data advocate. And it was created by privacy activist Max Schrems. Some of you might know who that is already just from saying their name. If I say GDPR to you, he's the reason GDPR is a thing. Max Schrems is the guy who highlighted the whole PRISM issue, which was US companies taking European citizens' data and sending it to the US to aid in international surveillance. So he's the guy who showed that was happening, and then got the EU to implement GDPR, got the EU to implement like Privacy Shield and stuff like that. So that's why it's now much, much harder for US firms to get EU citizens' data, and that's also why you see cookie pop-ups on every single website you go to now. Anyway, there's good things and bad things came out of that, I suppose. But this particular one is aimed at Ubisoft, citing concerns over the company's data collection practices and the requirement of an online connection for a strictly single-player game. So this was specifically for Far Cry Primal, which is a spin-off of Far Cry 5? Or 4? Was it 4? It might have been, I think it was 4. It was a standalone thing. Far Cry 3 had Blood Dragon, and Far Cry 5 had like the post-apocalypse thing. So yeah, I think it was 4. Anyway, Far Cry fan contacted Ubisoft to find out what data it had collected on them. Again, as part of the GDPR thing, you are allowed to request any data a company has on you, and they are legally obligated to give you that data. The firm alleges that Ubisoft has flouted GDPR rules, mostly because it didn't give him the data he asked for. So yeah, personal data being passed from Europe to the US for use in NSA's PRISM mass surveillance program. That's Max Schrems. That's that whole thing. Anyway, examination of the data Ubisoft had obtained showed a connection to external servers 150 times in 10 minutes, referring Noib claims referring to this as a secret data collection, because they didn't say why they were doing it, essentially. And it's not to just check that you still own the game. Do they need to check that you still own the game every 10 minutes? That's not even every 10 minutes. 150 times within 10 minutes. What the fuck's going on there? Ubisoft said that this was required to verify ownership of the game. That's also what the constant online connection is for. Max Schrems' party says that this was a game bought through Steam. Steam already does all of that by itself. It's no necessary for Ubisoft to weigh in on that. Anyway, as part of GDPR, the whole law basically says that you are allowed to collect data, but it has to be strictly necessary to provide the service and should only be in existence long enough for you to provide that service. And that's it. So it has to be strictly necessary, otherwise it is considered unlawful. So the question is, how much of this data was actually necessary to play Far Cry Primal, more or less? Ubisoft's end of things is just citing the end user license agreement, and again we've talked about how whether or not that is actually legally enforceable, because nobody fucking reads them, and the court is well aware nobody reads end user license agreements. Anyway, the argument hinges on whether or not the user accepted the EULA simply by playing the game. No, I would argue, but we'll see. Whether the information was actually personal data, they say it was. Whether it was then processed lawfully, they say it wasn't, and so on. So we'll see what comes of this. A lot of these kind of lawsuits and class action things that are brought against video game publishers, video game developers, we don't hear too much about them because they tend to get settled out of court, or they get dismissed by the court in the first place. But Max Schrems has priors. You know, he did fuck up the whole EU to USA NSA thing. So, like, if anybody's gonna get something out of this, it might be their activist group. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Moving on. Speaking about always online requirements, EA Skate does not have an offline mode. Great. Well, you can that's the end of that game. So anyway, EA's upcoming game Skate will not have an offline mode. Has been confirmed that it will be in early access some stage this year. A reason given for why it has a strictly online only gameplay is that the game will have a living, breathing, massively multiplayer skateboarding sandbox that is always online and constantly evolving. Why? Nobody asked for this. Also, I don't think anybody plays the original Skate was expecting it to be an MMO. Pretty sure that's not what anybody ever wanted, ever. Anyway, they explained it's always online, which is allowing players to witness the game's evolution over time, including updates to the city, live events, and other in-game activities. That's a big smell of seasonal content and live service shit. That's what that smells like. And yeah, those are always online. So they can milk the money out of you, basically. Has been reconfirmed for early access later on this year. So yeah, I did want to bring this back up because I think not enough people made a big enough stink about this at the time, but the playtest for Skate had microtransactions in it. So, like, they were testing this before they were testing, like, if it can handle large player numbers and stuff like that. No. Let's make sure the fucking money thing works. Anyway, the topic of why the playtest had active microtransactions. Using real money during a playtest is a little unusual. You know, that's a word we could use. There's another word. Several other less flattering words we could use. But it's required for them to properly assess and adjust the system before launch. Why is it every other game can manage it? They don't need to assess and adjust their microtransaction bullshit ahead of time and have people buy things that won't be available in the full game. Why didn't you just give people fun bucks? Why did you make them actually have to spend their... Because they did. They spent their own money. And God help them, people did it as well, which is kind of the other problem. So during the playtest, any money that you spent during the playtest will then be refunded to you as part of fun bucks. So you're not going to get your money back. You're just going to get the fake money. And the kind of throwaway line that's somewhat more concerning is that prices or other things might change over time. So your $20 that you spent during the playtest, you might assume you'll get back $20 worth of fun bucks, but you might not, because the price of the thing that you bought may have changed. You might get less back. You're not going to get more back. You're certainly not going to get more back. Anyway. Moving on. Shittiness. Okay. Tenderfoot Tactics developer pulls title from Xbox to support the pro-Palestine boycott. So the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions campaign, BDS, is a kind of pro-Palestinian campaigns being led. It's kind of against companies that are seen to be aiding and abetting in the genocide of Palestine and the Palestinian people. So Tenderfoot Tactics developer Badru has pulled the title from Xbox platforms in solidarity with the BDS campaign, which is called for a boycott of Microsoft specifically. Now, this is a very small game, not many people will have heard of. I haven't heard of it. What kind of impact that's necessarily going to have? Probably not a lot, but, you know, these are kind of small things that will hopefully add up over time and get Microsoft to change their ways. Debatable. Anyway, we hope that Microsoft will listen to the voices of their workers and customers and stop all business with the criminal Israeli military, which we have watched conduct an open genocide in Gaza over the last 18 months, which is attributed to the developer over on Blue Sky. BDS is specifically targeting Microsoft for providing the Israeli military with Azure Cloud and AI services. The Azure Cloud is Microsoft's cloud computing thing. So it's like Amazon has Amazon Web Services, Microsoft has Azure Cloud Services, but they're effectively the same thing. It's putting enterprise software in the cloud. They make a lot of money off it. Anyway, this is crucial to empowering and accelerating the genocidal war. Debatable if they'll actually change their mind because they're making too much money off it. Anyway, campaign is actively calling for consumers to boycott the Microsoft video game products, including Xbox hardware and software, which includes Game Pass and a bunch of other things. It's like, yes, I mean, it is good to like do these kind of boycotts and show that you're like against it kind of thing. Whether it will like actually, it remains to be seen whether other studios and creators will join Badru or whether the boycott will make a difference in the first place. Microsoft makes so much of their money off enterprise software at this point that like their consumer end of things is almost, it's not nothing, but it's not a lot. Anyway, I'm for the campaign, but I'm not naive enough to think it will make a difference. Anyway, other targets include Dell, Chevron, HP, Intel, Disney Plus, and Siemens. All of the good guys here, definitely. Anyway, pulling the game has resulted in a small loss of revenue. However, they have recouped those losses following a sales surge on other platforms. So it does seem like people have recognized that that's what they're doing and are voting with their wallets, as the phrase goes. This is again attributed to Badru. It's a huge part of the economy, especially in Seattle. This is Microsoft. Feels like everybody sort of works for Microsoft, or at least downstream from it. Microsoft is practically part of the state. It's so interconnected with the US military. Whether we're able to make Microsoft change or not directly, part of the point of targeting them is to be able to advocate around this and show these connections. This is kind of what I was sort of getting at. Like, it's good to make these campaigns and these boycotts just to highlight how interconnected they are, but we don't expect Microsoft to change their mind, basically. Otherwise, nobody's interested in Azure Cloud. Nobody wants to talk about whatever Microsoft's bullshit AI is doing. These boycotts create opportunities for us to shine a light. Anyway, Badger has acknowledged that some Microsoft workers have also spoken out against their employees. We did talk about that 2 weeks ago or something like that, but yeah, they were fired for doing so. They were subsequently fired. Yeah, they were fired for speaking out against it. Microsoft employees also themselves had launched No Azure for Apartheid last year in partnership with BDS, but yeah, Microsoft is still doing it, so they don't listen to their customers and they don't listen to their employees. Anyway, do with that what you will. Moving on. Reburn silently delays Lucky Mirror on release day as game lands negative reviews. So this is kind of a weird one. Like, I have heard of games being delayed because of, like, internal reviews didn't go well. I haven't really heard of one being released and then unreleased. I suppose technically the game didn't actually come out, didn't actually hit the stores, so I suppose technically it's still been delayed, but it's a weird one. Anyway, Reburn, formerly known as 4A Games Ukraine, has quietly delayed La Chimera on the day of its release amidst negative reviews. The belief is that Reburn has knocked back La Chimera's release date because of the negative feedback. So on top of the negative feedback is like the story's kind of whatever, gameplay's a bit bland, it's too short, and like a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, La Chimera has been delayed with no new release date in sight. There was no mention about this on their social media or anything like that. This was only just within their internal Discord. From Insider Gaming's own review, visual effects are subpar, gunplay is a bit boring, unimpressive, voice acting isn't great, story isn't great, really short, uninspired, yeah, and these aren't good things to hear about your game. So yeah, if you were expecting it out this week, it's not coming out, and we're not entirely sure when it's coming out now. Anyway, moving on. Last thing, kind of talking about games preservation. So this is again from Tim Kane, who has a really good YouTube channel. You should check out. Anyway, this time he was talking about games preservation and on how the wider, like, bigger publishers will say kind of handle games preservation, which is to say they don't. Anyway, destroy everything you have on Fallout's development, Interplay told creator. So it's one thing to tell the creator of the whole fucking thing to destroy all of his materials, but it's pretty shit to then not save any of them yourself, which is kind of what happened. Anyway, so he's talking about how when he left Interplay, he was told to then destroy any materials he had based on the original Fallout. So Interplay had to approach him after he had left the company to ask if he still had development archives they'd ordered him to destroy, because they had lost them. Anyway, so this is kind of a talk. It's over like a video, so it's sort of pieced together here on Rock Paper Shotgun. But he gave 3 reasons for why he feels that the medium's history has effectively, we've lost a massive amount of video game history, the video game source code and stuff like that. It's just because they don't fucking do it. Anyway, either no one thought to keep it, they just moved on to the next game, deleted it or whatever, made space. People wanted to keep their things private, which is a lot of, it's probably the bigger one, which is they just, everything gets tied up in copyright and IP and industry secrets and shit like that. They seem to think that the source code is some kind of holy grail thing, and if anybody ever gets to read your source code, they'll know how to do everything. It's like, that's not how it works. This is not really how it works at all. There's so much to it more than just having the source code. And even if that were the case, making that stuff available will make it easier to make games in the future, because people can learn from it. People can learn off. So the reason Doom is fucking everywhere is because they made it public. They made the source code public. People could look at it and see how they did all of their sprite work, how they made it feel like you were moving through a 3D world when there was no 3D at the time. All of that kind of stuff, all of those kind of tricks. When they start laying people off and losing a massive amount of talent and veteran skill from the industry, you lose all of the people who know how to do that. And because you've locked up all of the source code, new developers who come in have to effectively learn it all again from scratch. Whereas if you had made your source code available, this wouldn't be a problem. And the games wouldn't take 8 years to make. You're shooting yourself in the foot by making everything secret anyway. And the last one he brought up was a lot of organizations out there that demand to be the archive keeper aren't just not very good at it. So there's people who want to be game preservationists but don't know enough about how to preserve these kind of things. Like, a lot of the idea is that if you have a game on cartridge, or if you have a game on CD or DVD or whatever it is, that you'll have the game forever. And it's like, those components break down over time. CDs will eventually become blank after a while, or just stop working. Hard drives have a built-in read-write limit. There's only so many times they can be accessed before they stop working. And so on and so forth. There's all of these kind of small technical things that you need to be aware of if you're going to be in the preservation business. And not all of the firms are. They're just not aware of it. Like, they mean well, and they want to preserve the stuff, but they don't know how to do it properly. This is kind of an issue. Anyway, this has happened multiple times in my career. When I left Fallout, I was told you have to destroy everything you have, and I did. My entire archive, early design notes, code, different versions, prototypes, all the GURPS code. GURPS was a kind of role-playing system that they eventually had some kind of weird... They had some weird licensing issue with it, and they ended up going with Special for Fallout instead, but GURPS was what they were going to go with originally. Anyway, when they finally, a few years after I left, contacted me and said, oops, we lost all our stuff. I thought they were trapping me into, we're going to sue you if it turns out that you actually still have all of that stuff. It's like, no, they actually just lost it, and we're hoping that he hadn't done the thing that they requested him to do, I guess, but no, he did what they asked. He fulfilled his legal obligations, they didn't. Anyway. There's a lot more to that video on games preservation. Again, Tim Kane's YouTube channel is good, and I encourage you to check it out. Anyway, but yeah, one of the interesting things here was brought up by Frank Cifaldi, who's part of the Video Game History Foundation, who talked about last year when they were... they had a court case. They had a court case, something about making it okay for them to host video games or something like that for preservation reasons. And a lot of the industry was pushing back against it, and they eventually lost their case. But a quote at the time was that no one is against the idea of video game preservation, but companies and their shareholders are against the idea of not making a profit. That's kind of the issue, is that it will be technically very difficult. It will cost a lot of money to port video games and to make sure they're always available on the latest hardware and stuff like that. And there's no real profit margin there, so there's no business interest to do it. And since there's no business interest to do it, that means you have to step in. You have to step in as a national, international body and just mandate preservation, because they won't do it themselves. And I don't know how it's handled in film, or how it's handled in music, or how it's handled in, like, you have libraries, right? They're like a pretty sizable preservation thing going on. And I think there is a film library in the US somewhere. The Library of Congress? Do they do that? I think somebody handles a bunch of like film preservation stuff. I don't know how music is done. I think it's the same thing, but games are definitely not done that way. And games are significantly more complex than any of those other media. But the thing is, if like a completely non-profit but governmentally, like world governmentally backed body would have to be in place to do these kind of things, because enterprise by itself is not going to do it, because there's no profit incentive for them. Like, it's a lot of the times it's brought up that if libraries didn't exist and somebody brought up the idea of a library now, it would never get made, because business would just shut it down immediately, because they wouldn't make money off it. Anyway, moving on. Some community things here. So we've got one shitty community story and one slightly better community story. So the shitty one first. StarCraft 2 hackers are forcing players to watch mass shooting videos. That's good stuff. Alright, anyway. This isn't actually not new. It has been going on for quite a while, but it seems to have only come to light, the greater video game community, and the last couple of days. So StarCraft hackers are apparently exposing unsuspecting players to horrific footage. A lot of them are, like, as I said, like shooting videos, mass shooting stuff, execution style things as well, and then also the perennial bright flashing light bullshit thing to try to trigger people's epilepsy. Good shit. Anyway, this has been happening for nearly a year or more. StarCraft 2 players shared a story about a hacker injecting a video of a mass shooting into the game while they were playing online. Calling them a hacker is a bit disingenuous, because they're just another person playing the game, just being a shithead and exploiting a vulnerability. Like, that's not really in semantics, but that's not really hacking. Anyway, so this is coming through StarCraft 2's arcade mode. Arcade mode is a user-generated content thing. User-generated content is always a fucking minefield for this kind of stuff. This is why Roblox is such a fucking cesspool for school shooting game things and like grooming shit and all of this sort of thing. User-generated content, unless you're going to set up a significant moderation team on top of it, don't do it. Anyway, in StarCraft 2 Arcade, players are able to upload custom maps and custom modes and other things. And on top of that, it seems they're able to just inject video into it. Anyway, so some of the video that was shown, one of them was a man entering a store and shooting people in the head, so that's nice. One of them was just a random Russian pop video. So some of them are just innocuous, just why are you playing this? And some of them are like, what the fuck? And anyway. At this moment, I freaked out and hard closed out of StarCraft 2. My 5-year-old daughter was in the room with me, half paying attention to me playing a video game. This is beyond unacceptable. I should never have to worry about seeing people murdered or porn while I'm playing a StarCraft 2 game. Fair. I think. It's pretty fair. Anyway. After that made news on Reddit, many other StarCraft 2 players are sharing similar stories about hackers injecting random shit into their games. We're kind of quick to point out that this isn't necessarily an issue with the arcade map exactly, so it's not the people who are uploading the maps or who are uploading the map, the StarCraft 2 arcade things. There's some other exploit that while you are playing a user-generated map, somehow you are able to inject video into it. Not clear how. I've never played StarCraft 2 arcade stuff, so I don't know. Is video a thing? Alright, like it's maybe a case that like in the main game, like when people are talking to you, maybe they are like videos in the background and that's how they're working and they're just somehow getting into that pipeline. It's not particularly clear how they're doing it, but some players have shared stories of seeing things like swastikas while playing, the epileptic screamer shit where they just bombard you with flashing lights hoping you'll have an epileptic fit. Great. Love these guys. Anyway, it's all coming out of the arcade mode rather than the regular just multiplayer thing. Blizzard, for their part, did come back to say that they're looking into it and that the map editor has been disabled until they can figure out what the problem is. So they are looking into it, but the thing is, it has been going on for a while, and they only decided to look into it because it became a bigger issue. So yeah, good shit. Anyway, the slightly less shit story, right? Nintendo fans fight back against Switch 2 eBay scalpers and posts by posting fake listings. So the pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 had been open in the UK and EU for 2 weeks or so, and just launched, I think, in the US. So as you might have expected, there's scalpers all over eBay selling it for ridiculous amounts of money. Some people have already paid double. It's like $1,000 effectively for the Switch 2. Not good, not particularly great, but some people are attempting to fight back against it. So there are listings of the Switch 2 on eBay that are strictly just a picture of the Nintendo Switch 2. And now we've seen this as a scam before, but they are specifically saying in the description that no, this is a picture. This is strictly to just fuck with the scalpers and bots. Don't actually buy this. I know. You are ordering a picture of Nintendo Switch 2. This is to combat bots and scalpers. No refunds. All you will receive is a PNG. There's no console. This is a printed photo to prevent scalpers. If you buy this, you're only buying a photo. Don't buy this. Don't buy this. Yada yada yada. This is only to see if they can trick scalpers and bots into paying a lot of money for a very silly picture of a Switch 2. This is one way, I guess, to deal with scalpers. I mean, there are better ways that Nintendo should be employing and that the retailers themselves should be employing, but of course, they're not going to, because this only happens for a couple of their products, and most of the time this is not an issue. We're talking about, like, stores that sell other things other than video games, that sell, like, bigger consumer electronics. Best Buy sells a lot of TVs and that kind of thing. It's like the console maybe has this issue every now and then when pre-orders come up, but not really affecting their bottom line, so they're not gonna change. So it's once again up to the community to actually do something about it. Anyway, we'll leave Clair Obscur to loop. Anyway, that was your news for the 21st to 27th of April 2025. Not a whole lot happening. There was the Oblivion Shadow Drop. Which, yeah, from a nostalgia standpoint, it's exciting. Like, I played it just when I was entering university, I think, is when Oblivion dropped. So yeah, I do have fond memories of it, and seeing people playing it again, there's a nostalgia bump to it, and I do want to play it, but I'm not paying that much money for a remaster. Anyway, and as I said, I have a shit ton of games in my back catalogue, and Clair Obscur is also there. What else are we looking at? God Save Birmingham looks interesting, but again, this kind of laborious animations are kind of putting me off it. I don't know. And again, we don't have a specific storyline yet for it. If there is one, or if it's just a survival roguelike thing and it's just see how long you can live for, which is kind of whatever. It's a bit boring. Ghost of Yotai now has a release date. It does feel like Sony's half-assing its marketing a little bit for Ghost of Yotai, because I don't think they really have anything else. Is Marathon slated for this year? I think it is slated for later this year, but it feels like either both of those games are going to be coming out very close to each other, or one of them is going to get eaten by Grand Theft Auto 6, basically. I don't know. It does feel like... I mean, Sony's been half-assing things for I don't know how long at this point, but yeah, it's just another example of it. Like, the Days Gone remaster, I think, came out as well this week and saw basically nothing marketing-wise about it. Anyway, a lot of other games dropped. Clair Obscur, seeing here. Post-Trauma, as we were talking about. Necrophosis. Last Line. Defense Academy. 100 something in a row. Fuck, it's called. It has a ridiculous title. You know the game I'm talking about. Anyway, a lot of those games came out. The Ubisoft privacy thing might actually be a bigger can of worms. Depending on what exactly they find out. If it does end up going to Discovery and they can find what they were doing 150 times in 10 minutes, like, what was that? Was it really just pinging that the person was still playing the game? Or was something else being sent back to Ubisoft servers and they weren't being forthcoming about what that something is? We'll see. We'll have to figure it out. Or rather, we'll have to wait to see if that actually makes its way to court or if it gets settled or whatever. But as I've said, Max Schrems doesn't typically go for settlements. He does typically like to see legislation made about these kind of things. Doesn't always get his way, but like sometimes he does, and we get the GDPR, which is both a good and bad thing. It is a good law. I just think it wasn't implemented well, and it's not enforced either, which is why you're seeing shit like Ubisoft. Anyway, yeah. Otherwise, it was kind of a quiet week. For me, off stream, I know I haven't talked about off stream in a while, but that's also because I haven't really had anything to talk about off stream in a while. So I have been playing through Pillars of Eternity 2 for the last while. I think my PlayStation says 130 hours, I think I put into it. So it is all the DLC as well, but it's really good. Like, Pillars of Eternity 1, I was a bit mid over. Like, there was parts of it I liked, parts of it I didn't. But Pillars 2 is just so much better. And definitely the fact that they made it turn-based made it a lot more manageable for me. Like, I could tell what was going on and what my abilities were doing and what they weren't doing and things like that. Because I was expecting one of them was doing something that it wasn't doing, effectively. And I was able to tell it wasn't doing that in turn-based rather than in real time. It wasn't clear that that's what was happening. The story's really good. The DLC is also very good. One of them goes kind of deep into the like past lore of the game and like lore of the first game as well. Like, it's really well done. Yeah, like, very impressed with the sequel, and I'm glad I slogged through the first one, because It is a direct sequel. You are playing the same character, and a lot of your choices, almost all of your choices, have some reflection in the new game as well. So it's really good. And now I can play Avowed and maybe understand what's going on. Who knows? Anyway, it does mean I now need another giant game to play. We'll figure that out. I'll figure that out at some point. Anyway, that's it. Might as well leave this to play. That's it from me, though, for today. So I'll talk to you guys next week. All right. Have a good one. Bye.